Cell phones silent off, please, remind you. Nancy, would you do a roll call vote?
Guy. Here. Genema. Here. LaPointe.
Here.
Scott is excused. White.
Here.
Solinger.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'm here. I am here. Not long. This is Friday. Limited public comment at this time. Is there any limited public comment at this time? Oh, did you have your hand up
You
first?
can go either way.
Ladies first. We'll let ladies
All
first
right.
this time.
All right.
Since you're helping out.
Thank you. Michelle Babcock, and 4261 Bartlett Road here in Acme. Tonight, I'd like to address citizen-driven ideas for Acme Township. And I do have a copy that I'll...
Nancy, you're blind.
Now that Acme Township has approved a lease agreement to update computers and tech equipment with more storage capabilities, I'd like to suggest the township look into creating a link on their new website, maybe. Call it Township Meetings or something of that nature. Videotape the Township Board of Trustees meetings and the Planning Commission meetings at the very least. The cost can be minimal. Start the process by hiring a student, such as CCAT's from the area high schools or college to do the videotaping. It would cost the township around $1,000 per year. Rough estimate, I know. But it cost CCAT $775 so far to hire a student from the college for approximately 8 months. What a great PR boost for the township to get a student involved. It would also give that person pocket money to put back into the area. It's like a win-win situation. The public can request copies of these meetings for a minimal fee if you like, or for free, watch them on the Acme Township link. And then a second link for you to consider putting on Acme website is one for miscellaneous information. The public have a right to see, call it FOIA free. Here's an example of its contents. A listing of resumes for use at tonight's special board meeting to fill a vacant seat on the Board of Trustees. Brian Kelly should not have had to request a FOIA to look at the resumes in preparation of tonight's meeting. That is public information on FOIA. If that's the case, I hope Kathy did not charge him a fee. A link like I'm suggesting here would ultimately free up our clerk's time and effort of having to respond and search for that sort of information. The information can go on the link as it is received, and it would save those that you are here to serve some money, and quite possibly the township time too. Again, I just call this citizen-driven.
Thank you. Ryan, you got your hand up next.
Right. Good afternoon. We're fortunate to have 3 excellent applicants today. I don't think I've met Mr. Verbetten before. I've read meeting minutes from the years he served on the Planning Commission, and he represented the township well. I understand he is an expert litigator, and his firm handles some fairly contentious cases. Reading over some of those cases, I think he would be the first attorney I would call if I ever felt the urge to bulldoze wetlands without a permit or file an action against the county or a township. Of course, attorneys, like many professionals, often must argue for positions that they do not personally agree with. The challenge is that not everyone appreciates that distinction, and perceptions are critical. Acme is under a microscope, and I have concerns that his activity in those cases, or the activity of his partners, could contribute to the perception that there are conflicts of interest. As a busy partner in an active law firm, I am concerned that Mr. Verbetten may not have sufficient time to dedicate to this new role in our township. When he is preparing for a major case or taking it to trial, how will he find the time and energy to perform his duties as a trustee? Will he be available to the community? I think that the lack of time is demonstrated in his application. I very likely put more time and effort into trying to decipher his application than he did in writing it. I still don't know what some of those words were on the application. He did not provide a resume, nor did he provide his vision of Acme. There is no question that he can produce great work when he has the time and makes the effort. I don't see that he made hardly any effort, and I question whether he is truly committed to maximizing this opportunity to serve our community. His application suggests that he is not. We have a lot of work to do at Acme, and we need trustees who can consistently dedicate the time and energy into doing it. For stellar examples of devoting time and energy to the Acme community, we need look no further than Marcy and Jean. I met each of them at town hall meetings and have been incredibly impressed by their support and ongoing hard work for our community. Not just hard work, but high quality work. We are extremely fortunate that they have been volunteering and working on our behalf. I am confident they both would make excellent trustees. The challenge is in choosing only one. With Marcy, we have her work on park development, her role as chair of the Parks and Rec Committee, service as a planning commissioner, secretary of the planning commission, placemaking, and more. Jean has also worked hard for Acme on many important projects. Her professional experience is more extensive than Marcy's, and that experience is a great asset. I've gone back and forth in my selection of only one. At this time, I favor Marcy because of her dual roles on the planning commission and the leadership role on Parks and Rec. But I would be very happy with either candidate as our new trustee. Both of these individuals have earned this opportunity. If their dedication and hard work for our township have not been enough to earn your support, then I think we would probably expect them to question their level of effort and involvement in the future, and I hope that won't be the case. Thank you.
You please have a copy of your comments for your package. Oh.
Thank you. Tom Phillips, 2286 Wild Juniper. I probably won't be near as eloquent as my learned friend, Mr. Kelly, but I did come up here to say at least a few things that have been on my mind since I knew we were going to go forward and fill the trustee vacancy. And I found out about the applicants, and quite frankly, had a chance to review the applications and the resumes of those parties that were submitted. I was truly impressed, and please understand, I've never met this woman other than in this room from a distance, but I've been most impressed with the application and the resume submitted by Jean Ackerman as it relates to this position. I've seen this woman in action in this room, in meetings. Her level of preparation for meetings and her ability to speak eloquently and clearly and succinctly is rivaled by no one else who's probably stood at this podium, inclusive of myself, or maybe even Mr. Kelly. She's a sharp gal. Her resume is complete. And I think, as I think about our township, and I think about where we want to be and what's going to be going on in this township, it so behooves us to have people who've been involved in other committees and very actively involved in bringing to the table all their ideas, their willingness to listen and speak and keep working on issues. But there comes an energy level that every township board needs. And I think this lady brings it with her. And I think it would help carry us in the future as a very important person to have sitting at this table, and perhaps some way down the road sitting in that chair where some of the gray hairs in the room, we move on. It's time. But when you have somebody with such an energy level and an interest in doing the right thing for a community that really needs longevity and a vision, I think she's the woman for the group. I wish I could have said these comments after the interviews, but the agenda didn't allow it. So, and after the fact, of course, would have been too late. So I take the opportunity this time. I would really like the board to appoint her to that position. Thank you.
Can we also get your comments for the record? For Nancy?
Nothing in writing.
Your choice.
I don't have anything prepared. Yeah, just a lot of verbiage from me.
Oh, our camera lady. Thank you.
Oh,
Do you have an assistant, so she's keeping going?
Oh, I got it set. I think we're looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you.
Charlene Abernethy from 4312 Westridge. And I was here at Tuesday's meeting, and it struck me the lack of discussion about a new trustee. Are the applications the only thing that is used for the criteria? If so, I'm bewildered. Where was public input and discussion? Applications could only be obtained by FOIA. In an open and transparent township government, should the residents be given the opportunity to review applications and make their own suggestions or recommendations? The board now has three choices for the new trustee. Two of them I'd have a hard time choosing between because these two, which are Marcy and Jean, are active in current township affairs. They give uncounted hours of volunteer time to the township and share their expertise and strengths. They listen to input from others, and they take that input, the financial realities of the ideas. They do research, contact experts, and formulate a carefully thought out plan. They took the time to produce nice resumes and applications for us. Our third candidate, Matt Vermitten, hasn't been involved in Acme Township politics. I know that he has a history in the past, but has not been involved in what is going on now. So my question is, what is going on in the meetings for this selection of trustee? At Tuesday meeting, our supervisor tried to have his choice of the applicant be recommended to the board position. There was no discussion about the applicants, no discussion on strengths or weaknesses of each candidate. Plus, the purpose of that meeting is to choose the top three candidates. If it is run like that, to choose the candidates that way, I would want to know why other superb candidates are passed over for people that have not been involved of late. You all have a chance now to choose who you want to recommend for trustee, and hopefully you will do this with more information available.
Anybody else? Pat?
Pat Salathiel, 48885 Mile Road, Lewisburg, Michigan. First, I guess I want to ask if you all have received my letter and if you've had a chance to read it.
There's a package of many letters received in front of everybody.
But they haven't.
Well, we only got them today.
Right, so they haven't been read. Okay.
I don't know they haven't, how many have or haven't.
I've been in training today for
Okay.
election workers.
Well, then I will take a minute, and just Paul and I spoke, and he has given me permission to speak for him also. And I'll just go through quickly some of the items that I mentioned in the letter. Jean has been on the Shoreline Committee. Well, she says it's much later than 2008, but she really started volunteering for a volunteer position way back at its inception. Finally, she became a full volunteer in, I don't know, 2009, 2010, it doesn't matter, because she's been involved. In fact, she is the person that spearheaded the marina feasibility study that I think all of you have seen. And it really helped, I think, the previous board make decisions, and this board, I think, about what would happen with the marina. She's also very detail-oriented. She has a unique ability to see the big picture, and I think that is desperately needed in this township. I mean, she can formulate a detailed business plan and still think of a larger vision. Just skipping over some of it, the document, frequently asked questions, that's on the website. Jean wrote that, gathered all the information to make sure it was accurate, and updates it regularly. She served as a member of the placemaking leadership team and has provided support to the Parks and Recreation Committee. Then when she learned that the community, one of the community's top priorities was a boat launch, she of course volunteered to volunteered to lead the application process for the DNR Waterways Grant. She knows how to build consensus. She knows how to get along with people. She's a clear thinker, great personality. I think she would be a tremendous asset to the board, as does Paul. Now that said, I also want to say that Marcy, along with Jean, have donated hundreds of hours to this township. And I could have, if I were sitting in your place, I could have voted for either one of them, but I think in this particular instance, that Jean, at this particular time, maybe later, she would be the best candidate for this position. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I guess I have a question. I submitted a letter as well, and if you
It's in the
folks
packet.
haven't had a chance to read it and you're going to be making a decision today, would you like me to read it now?
It's up to you. It's unfortunate, but all the letters came in this morning and some as of late. We put a package together, so everybody had them, but not having them early, that's,
Yeah.
It was a very compressed schedule for this event. I think it really should have been drawn out more.
no more, somebody else is coming.
Okay. I'm Christine Garner from 7189 Bennett Road in Williamsburg. And my letter reads, Dear Jay, when I heard Jean was applying for the position of Acme Township trustee, I thought, wow, what a great fit. Simply put, it revolves around the word trust. A key learning from my human resource management days is that trust has two key components, that of integrity, which is what we typically think of, and just as important is the component of capability. We can like someone, we can have similar values, we can be aligned in goals and objectives, and feel they won't waver from what to agree to. But if we don't add in the capability aspect, then we won't be successful. Jean brings both aspects to the table. And the great news, we've been lucky enough to have experienced it firsthand with the project work she's done for the township. Doing the feasibility study, the placemaking project, the sales health launch, and countless other instances where she's lent an ear and provided perspectives. All very thorough, balanced, fact-based, and collaborative. My note, what I'm reading, is not intended to be a comprehensive list of all the projects and specific ways Jean has demonstrated her integrity and capabilities, aka trust. Rather, it's intended to provide an interesting framework for looking at what I'm sure you'll be hearing from others in terms of why Jean would make a great addition as trustee to the Acme board. When I think of Jean, it's all about integrity and capability, and that's trust. Quite fitting. Please accept this letter of support from Jean Alperman for the position of trustee for the Acme Township Board. So Nancy, I don't know if you need this.
No, I
we
do
have
have.
it. They will be attached to the minutes as usually. Okay, anybody else? Yes. Oh, you've already spoken once.
Oh, can I go again?
Real quick. You
Right.
normally don't, but just real quick.
I wanted to reiterate, on Friday I called to try and obtain the applications of the applicants, and I was unable to do so. I was supposed to come in on Monday. Monday I was unable to get them because it was very busy down here. I did get them on Tuesday right before the meeting, and I think we can do better as a township on that. And I think the real problem here is the schedule is too compressed. Friday is where news goes to die. Very few people can be here to participate on a Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. I think we should have given more time and effort to making sure Paul Scott could be here. I don't know if we really tried to work around his schedule.
Paul made his own decision today, so you know, he had a personal commitment. It had nothing to do with it.
Well,
Work.
okay. Maybe we
I
could have found
can't do that,
I
anything about
understand it came up, but, okay. Well, I think maybe if we'd had more advance notice, maybe we could have had all the trustees here and we could have had more of the public, and we could have had these letters in the paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. Approval of agenda from the board, please. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda as stated. Support.
Motion approved and supported. Any question? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Inquired any conflict of interest today? Doug?
Jay, I want to make a comment on Wednesday, Tuesday, when was it we had our meeting?
Tuesday.
On Tuesday, when we had the meeting there, it could be construed that I had a conflict of interest with one of the people that was to be voted on. I personally didn't think there really was. It was brought to my attention that my son happens to work for a company where one guy's a supervisor. You can take it, throw mine out, my vote's out, or whatever you want to do. I don't believe it was a conflict because there's no gain as far as I'm concerned either way. Personally, I guess it would be a gain if I wouldn't.
Their ideas, I can't get people to take their ideas to the next level. That's my biggest frustration.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amy?
Right.
Marcy, what do you think would be a strength that you would bring to the board? Because obviously most of us know you've been sitting on the Parks and Rec and the Planning Commission, but it might be something that we don't know that you would potentially bring to the township board that wouldn't be necessarily associated with the Planning Commission or Parks and Rec, but something outside that.
I think I would bring a completely out-of-the-box thought pattern. I come from a little bit of a younger generation, so I have this difference where I was really raised a lot of the time with my grandparents, so I do understand the older generation. I grew up with that, very close to it. But then on the flip side, I have children involved in that younger generation, and then I come from the age group that I remember when the internet came around and I was 16. So it's like you live with and without. And I think that I would bring a really good blend of understanding, and I'd bring a patience to sit down and work through people's issues in a very cognitive fashion that would honor what everybody has to say and take that and bridge it to look not only from past experience and learning from that, but looking towards the future and really what we're going to need in the future, because the world in 20 years is not like we know it now, and we have to keep that in mind as we move forward.
One more question.
Go ahead.
You know you've been working with the budget on our Parks and Rec, so you kind of understand where the finances are sitting. You know, General Rule Township, we're bringing one mill to operate and kind of trying to spread that amongst everything. And infrastructure is a big issue, as Gene has brought up. How do you think would be your way to prioritize? Because we have infrastructure needs, meaning roads, sewer, water, that to bring into our commercial, yet we have our parks and shoreline that we've spent a lot of money on our parks, and we have grant money coming in left and right that our funds are starting to, how would you believe we'd start that task of trying to prioritize which ones, where's the money gonna go? Where are we gonna put our match money?
That's tricky. I look at that two very different ways, and I guess I'm going to be letting a little cat out of the bag here because I haven't really talked to anybody about this. But I see if we develop our parks and we bring the money in for that and get the park set up, then I could see how we might start pulling in, and when I say events, I don't want you to think concerts. I want you to think triathlons and sailing events and things that are more on the quiet side, but bringing in things that will then bring in more business, and that we might be able to charge something for and raise funds that then that money could be diverted to bringing up the roads and the water. Obviously, I think that some of our infrastructure, like our water to pull in businesses and things of that nature, should probably develop at the same time, and that is creating that stopgap of, okay, we have this much parkland, that's all we're going to get for right now, no matter what comes through and what's available. We have to look at managing this and growing this in a responsible manner. And once we do that and get it underway, then we need to spread out and move to the infrastructure of the roads and the water and the sewer. And those could work together to kind of be, within the same ballpark of building that base so that we can bring good things here for the community, but it's not necessarily things that are going to take away from our open space and our open field. It would be very complementary to what we have in our area.
Anybody else have another question? Cory?
The survey that was supposed to drive, to a large degree, various projects and the way the board responds, etc. I'm sure you've looked at it in detail.
I haven't read all 200 comments though.
I have, they're interesting. Do you recall what is the biggest issue by a wide margin in the survey?
I have to admit that when I looked at that survey, I looked completely from the Park and Rec standpoint.
Which gets me to the,
Right.
I think you're doing a fantastic job in Parks and Rec and with what you have to do.
So if roads was number one and that beat out Boat
Okay.
Launch, I don't know that. But if that's the way it goes and that's what needs to be worked on, then see, I'm open to discussing how we find that balance.
Okay, it's because you come with the Parks and Rec parks mandate, and which is what you've been working on. But if you do look at the survey, it's roads, and I'm amazed at the number of people on a boat launch.
Right. That's what I picked up on. So I guess if I was to sit on the board, then I would have to look at how the roads affect how to get to the parks and the boat launching. All that other stuff. So, you know, infrastructure.
Anything else from Marcy? Thank you, Marcy, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, I guess here we are, just like in school, alphabetically, Benton's always the last one. I'm actually a little nervous after hearing these two wonderful folks that I haven't met. It's nice to meet both of you. Certainly my ideology and philosophy precedes me.
You should feel lucky. Me and Jay were behind you yet.
That's true.
True. What am I complaining about? I've been standing all day, so I'm going to sit.
I'll start out this time.
All right.
We'll go through Amy and come back to it. Explain some of the things you've been involved in this township over a period of time, or whatever period of time.
Well, I mean, from a township perspective, I mean, we raised our children in Acme Township. I'm from the old Mission Peninsula when I moved away to go to school and work and go to law school. When we had the opportunity to move back, my wife being from Metro Detroit said, let's go to Traverse City. When we came to Traverse City, Acme Township was the first place we drove through, and I never considered it. And soon I fell in love with the Holiday Hills area, and we raised our family there. We were very, very intertwined in the birth of our school. We spent a lot of time with those folks, meeting with a lot of neighbors in the Holiday Hills area, and ultimately moved up Bunker Hill Road. Enough of that history. So when I was practicing here and traveling a great deal at that time, because most of my business was down in Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb County, I was on the Planning Commission. And as a Planning Commission member, I got very involved in the community itself. And again, either all of you or most of you certainly know where my philosophy and ideology comes from, what it stems from. I was also asked at that time to serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And so I worked on the Zoning Board of Appeals for a period of time. Before sort of stopping all of that, my kids were at the age where travel hockey and travel swim kept us zipping around the state, usually in two different vehicles, all week and all weekend long. And then when that ended, I came back on the Planning Commission again, and ultimately was the planning chair for a number of years. And was actually, what'd you call it, VGT?
VGT.
When I was the planning chair, VGT from a planning commission perspective was approved.
Okay. What's your thought on the growth and development of Acme? What do you think are the two main things that we need to do that maybe we haven't done yet?
Can I get three?
You can get three.
All right.
At least two.
I mean, if you've read the minutes, you'll find that I do talk a lot about the trifecta of Acme, which is an agricultural-based community that has a Spartan natural resources. And I use the natural resources as much as everybody, from the Yuba to the Maple Bay to the Bassa on an almost daily basis. And we have a TART system that ends at Bunker Hill. I'm also on the TART board, and there was some effort to get the expansion. And I think that's a huge deal, frankly, is get the TART trail through to M72, through the area that it's currently sitting on. And VGT, Steve Smith, they're very positive about doing that. So there's just a little bit of effort that has to be done to get that. I think that we have to celebrate the natural areas that we have. I think the finest letter I got when I retired or quit or discontinued my planning chair position was from a person that I fought bitterly with on a monthly basis, Bob Carstens. And I saved that letter. I honestly saved that letter, and I actually pulled that letter out tonight before I came over here. Because what I found was that although you can be painted with a brush when you represent certain clients in certain situations, and it's public and it is a lot of emotional aspect to it. What I liked was the ability to have honest, fair discourse and argue points, concede or not, but agree to disagree, and respect the people that we talk to. So that's our natural areas. I think those need to be celebrated. The Bay Shore project, for those who are involved so completely in opening up that, a tremendous job. And we all benefit so much from that. People who don't even know our area benefit from seeing that. And, it's very exciting. The agricultural aspect of our community, I think, needs to be bolstered up. I think that is something that has to do with the whole historical perspective of our community, and it really holds this community together. And agriculture was here. It's going to continue to be here. It may change. It's going to evolve. But that evolution is natural. It happened on the Old Mission Peninsula. It happened in the Leelanau Peninsula. It's happening here. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And there's nothing prettier than coming in from Kalkaska after a long day on the road, wherever you were, and cresting the hill and seeing the farms. I'd like to see the leaves, ultimately, this year. But, I mean, the blossoms, I know, yeah. But regardless, I mean, it's just so beautiful to see that, and then you see the Bay. And finally, we are taking a lot of areas for parks and open space, and that takes a lot of money away from the community. And so I think a solid tax base, I think a tax base of needs to be developed. And I don't want to sound like an old record, so I'll try not to be totally repeating what I've said for so many years, and that is, the market, there are ordinances involved, and the Socratic way of thinking is IROC. And that's issue, rules, application, and conclusion. And the rules are the ordinance. And if the ordinance is provided, if the developer can fit within the confines of an ordinance and develop a project, VGT, the railroad, one out at Bates Road, Bates Crossings, whatever it happens to be, Tom's, Kmart, then those developers who are not altruistic, they're coming in to make a profit, but they need to make a profit in a way that also celebrates the agriculture and natural portion of our. It's a tough tipping pot, and but I think that that's what's needed. More business. I know that's probably not accepted by all, but that's me.
So we'll move on, I might come back.
Okay.
Yeah, and actually I might have stolen this one just because I don't know anything about you.
Right.
So I might be one of the naive ones here, not knowing, because it seems like a lot of people know a lot of stuff. Future, and it's a question that had already been asked, I believe, of Gene. What do you see in 10 years in Acme when you know that we've been working hard on our shoreline, we've been working with the development, which you were part of for some, I know there's been a gap, and now you're coming back in. What do you see as what we're going to have in the 10-year aspect?
Sure. I mean, I don't want to steal what has been said. The third person gets to listen to all the answers, right? I didn't know it was going to be asked.
No, right.
I like infrastructure.
Right.
M72 is, I don't like my children coming back on M72, and it will take the left turn at Lautner to cut back through that way
Sure.
and I know that's changing, but I think infrastructure is really, really important. Yeah, Holiday Hills is beautiful. I'm talking roads that can accommodate traffic with proper signaling and bring you in from this beautiful agricultural zone, and now you're entering into a very well-planned community that has a variety of businesses that will attract people both in Acme, but let's not fool ourselves, from far away. And the region will be pulled into the gateway. This is the gateway. And so when you're the gateway, I think you have to have beautiful developments which transition out of agricultural. I love the idea of quiet areas. I'm seeking those out constantly, and they're here, and they should be expanded. But those agricultural, that transitional period into business, it's going to lay the tax base, it's going to allow us to do more infrastructure, it's going to help with boat launch process, and things of that nature. That's what I see. So I guess it's infrastructure, really, but infrastructure means not only the roadways, but also fire suppression, water, and sewer, and just a good overall strategy to develop the area as the gateway community, which is exactly what it is. What my wife and I discovered when we drove back to that.
Sure, you brought up the farmland and how we do have a farmland millage, which we have a program, we've bought hundreds of acres already, that is now expiring this year. If you, which we as a board can't really do much, but if you had to figure out a way to try to get that millage to pass again, is that something that you think was good for Acme to have, to where it's actually a millage-driven preservation?
I like the idea of government being part of the community. I like the idea of government bringing in consensus, talking with people, and putting out ideas, because that's where a lot of people get their ideas from government. But I also believe that government should step aside and allow farmers, and allow developers, and to allow things to develop as they're going to. And Adam Smith and the Invisible Hand from the Wealth of Nations, you know, Econ 101, here's how you do this. You may not like it, and you may be able to help steer things in a direction, but to take and put funds, hard-earned funds, into a project like that, I find very difficult. I do.
Gordy.
I'll just, some consistent. Second, we have one meeting a month now. There's discussion going to a second meeting. Does that pose a problem?
Brian's right. I mean, I do a lot of traveling and I do a lot of moving around the state. On the other hand, I always have tried to live up to what my grandma said, and that is, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. I don't see any problem. I agree with whoever said, if it's during the day, that's going to be very difficult. I wouldn't shy away from saying that would be very difficult. 7 o'clock at night, it's not difficult.
And again, just so everyone knows, if we move to that, it'll be a published schedule. It won't be getting notice 3 days ahead of time. It'll be set at the beginning of the year, and everyone will know it, and hopefully we'll record it.
5 o'clock was hard enough, by the way. I've never driven across town at that early of a time, and there's a lot of traffic.
That was Jay's doing. That was a test.
Yeah. Ooh.
Close.
Yeah. I think I've got a Jeep, but moving around.
You can go to the top.
Okay, I'll ask you the same question as Gene and Marcy. And I'm speaking more to the board, and I'm speaking more short term, 2 to 3 years. What do you think of, when you've been in the community, you know what's going on, and you talk to your neighbors, and from your standpoint, what do you think is the biggest challenge that this board will face in the next 2 to 3 years?
The biggest challenge that this board will face in the next 2 to 3 years is the same challenge that this board has faced for this body has faced for the last 7 years, and that's a lot of distrust. I think that there are a lot of people out there who want this community to move forward, whatever that means to them. And they're concerned that I've never been a believer in worrying about being looked at under a microscope.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? You're either going to like it or you're not going to like it, but let's move it forward. Make a decision and move forward. I think this community needs to move forward, and it needs to move forward in a positive fashion. That doesn't mean there's not going to be speed bumps and mistakes and U-turns from time to time. That happens in my family. I don't know if it happens in everybody's family, but I mean, from a business perspective, it happens in my firm, it happens personally. But I think if you're in there digging with your sleeves rolled up and just working hard, trying to do the best thing, then I think that is going to be the challenge. The challenge is just going forward with the vision that's been painted.
Funds are limited. There's a lot of demand for different services, infrastructure was mentioned. I mean, we can, parks, continue to develop into the parks. We've got the land now to develop it. And we're kind of increase, the only way we can really increase revenue is increase the tax base, preferably with businesses, establishments that fit in the community, fit in the master plan, fit in the vision. Everyone talks about promoting that. We're a board sitting here with limited ability, we can't print money like some can. How can the board over the next what can the board do within our power over the next 2 to 3 years to promote the proper type of growth that if you again look at the survey, which people by and large are in support of.
That they are by and large in support of.
By and large are in support of.
And I did a cursory review of the survey, and it seems like that kind of development is by and large. I mean, you can take samples and bits and pieces from a lot of townships in our area. There's a lot of stuff that we don't have to agree with, from a Blair and a Garfield, and even now a Long Lake Township in large measure, although Long Lake is working very diligently in trying to keep the development under control and sane. But those tax bases, the bases that are generated as a result of the tax and the revenue that's come in as a result of businesses coming in, the domino effect is that people tend to move to those areas where businesses are close by. So they can go to Myers or Walgreens or wherever they're going at the drop of a hat. And so it's that delicate balance again. It's the balance of having plenty of businesses here, so I don't have to drive over to South Airport or to Division Street to do my shopping. It's all here. And that means for everybody. And that in turn will generate people moving to our area and building homes, again adding to the tax base.
Being on the planning commission and your background as an attorney, what drives a lot of that are the ordinances the township has in place. I mean, it can be pro, it can be support of growth, it can be counter growth. I mean, that's why you can somewhat meter this. Your opinion, now the ordinances have changed since you were on the planning chair of the planning commission. What's your candid appraisal of the current ordinances in Acme Township?
I think they're fine. I think those ordinances are made, have been worked on diligently by groups of people. I think that those ordinances have been put in place for a reason. And like it or not, those ordinances can be utilized both pro and con, no matter what you're trying to do. They tend to lean a little bit away from drawing businesses into our community. But that doesn't stop businesses from coming into our community. And that goes back to the Socratic oath, where you're looking at the issue, but you're really concentrating on the rules, the law, and that's the ordinance. And so I think that you can work through an ordinance book and work through that ordinance to accomplish whatever goal you want. Sometimes you can accomplish multiple goals as a result of, a significant review or a comprehensive review of those ordinances. Good.
Go ahead, Ken.
Why do you want to be a trustee?
I've always been involved with township governmental layering for a long time. I have stopped a couple of times for the reasons that I've set forth. I've got is this township being the gateway that it is, and working diligently on enhancing the gateway through all of the areas, which includes the agriculture, it includes the natural areas, it really does include the business. So I think that, whether you like my style or not, a lot of people don't. I mean, I believe I can think quickly and I can articulate my position whether or not you agree with it or not. But I can also respect others. And I think that's what I would be good at.
Thank you.
Anything else? Done?
Then, Ken,
Yeah.
Matt, when you talked about the farmland preservation and that you're against it, I took it. I didn't hear a yes or no answer. Yeah, but that's the way I took it. That being said, we've already went through how many years has it been? 8 years?
10.
10 years? 10-year period with it. Okay. Your opinion is, now that we've already preserved some farmland,
700 and some acres.
okay, your position is still against it.
My position was for it when we passed the Farmland Preservation Act.
Okay.
My understanding was that we were going to pull additional mills. We were pulling additional money into the community. Maybe I misunderstood that, because I think I said along the way somewhere, that's hard-earned money that may or may not should be directed at agriculture. Maybe I misunderstood the
It might
question
have
when I
been
answered it that
It's
way.
up for renewal.
It's up for renewal.
It's up for renewal.
Okay,
So
we're
it's
not
gonna
asking
hit
for another
Not
mill.
another mill, the renewal of a mill.
Just to renew what,
Renew what's already been, yeah, because it's coming off in 14.
It's off now, basically.
If
It's
it will
not
come off
already off.
December, December 1st, it will not go on the tax bill unless it's passed.
Right. I think that I would continue to support that, to continue that at the level that it's been. I would not work to have it enhanced.
okay, just, I wanted to,
That's why I'm
Get
glad,
that
I'm glad you
clarified.
clarified.
and,
I was
Sorry.
listening. Tricky question.
You're checking us out.
and you mentioned there's a lot of distrust out within the community of the board. I'm not gonna just say this one, past ones, however. Do you coming onto the board, or one of you, do you feel that you can bring some more trust towards the board?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think any three of us would do that. And the reason I believe that is that I say what I mean and mean what I say. Those were excellent comments that I heard, and I know that they would do the same thing. I can't, how long have I been off as a planning commission chair? I can't go to Ace Hardware, because to get, 4 screws takes an hour and a half, because people stop me and talk to me. I can't go to, Daryl's party store. I can't go to Tom's. I mean, people stop and talk to me, even though I don't, honestly, and many people are right, I haven't been part of it for a while. But that's what I hear over and over and over. What is going on here? I can't walk my Airedales around the neighborhood without getting stopped. And the reason for that is that whether they like me or dislike me, or I think they trust me. They trust me for whatever reason.
And I haven't got any more questions. I mean, I served with Matt on the planning commission, so I kind
I only have one quick one. What's your position on the new township hall?
Love to see a new township hall.
Community center,
Community
center.
center.
I kind of purged that word.
I know, you gotta get right.
I'm trying to answer the question first.
Well, there is a difference.
I would absolutely love to see that. I mean, when you go into Garfield Township, when you go into the variety of townships that I do, and it's remarkable, that you have a beautiful structure, a beautiful non-tax-paying structure, that you better have a lot of the $50,000 in your other pocket and saving money to do. I hope we have it, because I really like the idea of having more police people out there. I like the idea of having full-time fire and EMS people out there. I like the idea of having that as a real bedroom community to Traverse City, and having that kind of stuff. That's where I'd be throwing those dollars first. This is a comfortable setting. I've been in here a long time. It's growing, and it needs to change, but it's not going to be my first priority.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being last. It's not always easy. Best.
I should have
sometimes.
memorized what we've been doing.
At this point in time, we have a couple choices here. We can rank the people. We have if you want to do it by a closed vote, we have some forms we can do that with. If you want to just mark your sheet and we'll summarize it like we did the other day for our candidates, we can do that openly. What's the board want to do?
That's fine. And just for clarity,
Okay.
your first choice is a number 1, second is 2, so you don't have any. Right?
Yep.
And the sheet.
Huh?
1, 2, or
1, 2, or 3.
One being the highest.
1 being the highest, so just first choice.
For yourself,
Or else
on
my
your sheet.
math doesn't work. I'll just make a comment. Like I think you said, there are 3 great candidates, and I would hope, however this works out, that you all choose to run in the next election. It's an experience. There'll be at least one seat.
This, you made it tough too, because when you have good candidates, when you have bad candidates, or less qualified candidates, it's always easier to eliminate, but when you have all good ones, it makes it tough. Okay. Kathy, you have a blank sheet in front of you? I'll give you one. So we have a summary sheet. I guess I'll start out, or let's let Amy start out.
Sure.
And we'll just go right down the line. Who's your, just tell
Who's
me.
my top? Jean, 2 is Timmons, 3 is Vermin.
Okay? I'll do next. 1 is Permitton, 2 is Ackerman, and 3 is Timmons. Yourself?
Okay. My first is, oh, wait, here we go, I did this right. Sorry. My first is Ackerman, 3 is Timmons, and 2 is Vermin. Okay,
All
I'm
set?
ready.
1 is Vermitten, 2 is Ackerman, 3 is Timmons.
I'm sorry, what was yours? Permitted?
Well, we can go across from the start. Vermitten 1,
Okay.
And 2 was,
Ackerman.
okay, I got it right.
And Gordon?
Give them all ones.
We could expand the board.
1 Ackerman, 2 Vermitten, 3 Timmons.
Does any one person have more than three votes, at least 3 votes?
Just a second. Yes.
If they do.
Ackerman has 7, Vermin has 9. 14 is Timmons, if you add them all up. Somebody double check me, but
Well, go to the first thing, there's 3.
3,
The
1.
majority is
Yes.
3.
3 ones.
Or 3 ones.
So if anybody on your sheet is selected as the first place choice of 3 or more, way this says, right,
Yep.
Yes,
they're our selection. We have the
that's
3,
all.
and that's Ackerman. 1, 2, 3.
Somebody want to make a motion then?
I think that would be appropriate.
I'll make that motion, that we appoint Jean Ackerman as the to fill the trustee position for the remainder of the term.
Second?
You got that, Nancy? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Thank you. Very good. I hope you all were not uncomfortable with what we did. It's what we wanted to be open. We thought it was better we just say what we thought. Gordy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sincere when I say, I mean, I could have given you all ones. You bring, in my opinion, different strengths to the board. I'd love to have your background, and Marcy's background, and Jean's background, put them all together. Can we expand the board? Can we expand the number of trustees? It would be something. And I hope you'll all get involved in the township on planning committees. There's a number of, some big projects going on, but my favorites, roads and community center. I'm looking for some people to work with on that, so great job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will, when do you want to swear her in, Monday? This year's schedule.
Yes, if I could, please.
If you can come in Monday and swear you in, and that way in the Tuesday's meeting, you'll be sitting up there with us.
Thank you.
That gets us moving on.
And what time on Monday?
What's your schedule?
I'm open for this. You tell me, is 10 a.m. okay or?
Perfect, Debbie. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Gene, do you have a preference on what side of the table you want to sit?
Thanks for coming out.
We'll figure it out. We'll
Because I
figure
put
it
the
out.
names out.
At this time, we still have open public comment. If
sorry.
anybody has
I'm
anything.
sorry.
Just a minute. Tom, then we'll come to you.
Okay.
You had first before.
Okay,
No.
I'm just saying here, I really thank you guys for taking the time to actually talk to the candidates. I feel much better irregardless of what the outcome would have, irregardless of what the outcome would have been, that you actually sat down and listened to the candidates, allowed us to be here and participate in it. That's the way it should be. So thank you.
Just quick, as it relates to process. Number one, I believe the group should have worked with prepared questions. My observation sitting in the audience is that questions were asked of people differently. For example, what's your issues with Myers? Versus later on being, what's your issues with BGT? A different connotation to that question, I think, by each of the candidates, and it was given to them a little bit differently. The one question about the fire village is being continued. That was only asked of one candidate. I don't think that was fair to all three candidates to have the questions somewhat massaged and changed as the process went on. I mean, you obviously got to the right answer at the end because you chose the right candidate, but we'll leave that alone. But I think to be fair to candidates, the questions should have been the same. This comes from 35 years of state government where we did things regimented, but it's cleaner that way as it relates to each person being asked the same thing in the same way. Secondly, just as being fair to the candidates, I think it's better to have the candidates, the other candidates, not being interviewed, out of the room while a select candidate's being interviewed. And I say it from the standpoint of the last person has the advantage of formulating his or her responses based on the questions already being provided to them and the answers already being given by the numbers 1 and number 2. So I think you're fair to the candidates by having them in the room by themselves. Just observation process.
Thank you, Tom.
Just comment.
Yeah.
Since it's an open meeting, just to answer your question, I realize it's awkward to have other people in while you're interviewing another person. This is the way you do it in business. Unfortunately, we're operating under the Open Meetings Act, and once you have it in a public session, everybody can attend. So we can't tell one candidate, do not come while this other candidate's being interviewed. So.
That's a violation of the Open Meetings
Yeah.
Act, by not
Yes,
having the other
yes, it
two.
is.
That would be a surprise.
Because we can't exclude a person from coming to the city. And we've been through this before, but your comments are well taken. It is a different process. And it is tough on the candidates. I would
Yes.
also agree with that. Amy, you wanted to say something?
No, that was some of it, and some of the, on the question part that's difficult as a board to not make it the same is because unfortunately there is an advantage for some. Where Doug knows Matt, I don't know Matt at all, so the questions I would ask of him are gonna be different because I'm trying to get some specifics, where with Gene and Marcy, I maybe know a little more just because, you know, I'm newer to the board and I deal with them, where Matt's been here a lot longer and dealt in the past, where.
But I think that was a tougher question for Matt to handle because the other two never got it.
And I guess, and you know, and that's unfair maybe to Matt because I knew what their position was. So it was like, and I didn't know his position. So it's like, I don't know why.
Apparently neither did I.
So it's like, right, wrong, or indifferent.
And we have seen it done both ways here and different things. I thought it worked really well. We always will try to look at each time and adjust and make changes. It's better. Virginia, you have your hand up first. So.
Virginia, table 4810 Bartlett. You stated at the beginning of the meeting that the #1 requirement for a trustee is to represent the people of Acme Township. I feel very strongly that Ms. Jean Ackerman will do that, and I would encourage you to look at the Michigan Township website because they do have more of a thorough description of the trustee. Thank you.
Matt?
I'd just like to say I think the process went very well also, and that I'm glad that Marcy will continue on with the Parks and Rec. I don't know what would happen to that committee without her. And I'd also like to say that I served with Matt on the Planning Commission for a number of years. And I hope he gets involved again. Now that your kids, I understand the kid thing. I mean, you're all over the state. But now that you do have more time, I'd love to have you more involved.
Any other? Brian, you have your hand up, so.
As I said at the beginning, very impressive interviews, amazing candidates today.
Right.
One thing I would have liked to have seen, it's a small thing, and it's not, is I would have preferred a random order for the candidates. And obviously the decision to go in alphabetical order, we know there's a, and I brought this up in a previous meeting, huge advantage to hearing those questions. Huge advantage. And it's a bias, and it's really inappropriate at the township hall. They should have gone into a hat. You gave the candidates the option to request that, but I don't think a candidate is going to say, yeah, I want that. They're going to try to stay low and go with the flow. So, you know, maybe some of the audience, I should have barked up, use the hat, but that's the way to do it. Now, I bet if you looked at any guidebook, they tell you best practice is to do it random. But that's the way we need to do that in the future. I realize Tom made a great comment here, and we talked about that before, whether everyone would get the same question or not. Obviously, it's an evolving process. You don't do this very often, not everyone here, and the questions invariably tend to morph, but it's hard to go to the rigor, you know, because you hear one, you get ideas for questions when the process goes on. It's much harder to write every question down and stick with that, not deviate it. You know, maybe in the future when we have to do this again, we can look a little more at best practices. Maybe if we had 2 or 3 weeks to prepare, we could have had a more rigorous process here. We could have went out and looked at some other best practices guidelines on how to do this. Now, if we had until June 1st to do this, I'm not aware of any barn-burning issues pressing our township to do this in such an expedient fashion. On the open meeting, I realize it would be an open meeting violation to exclude anyone for a portion of the process. I'm going to wager, if we asked these 3 candidates, would you agree to a process where you were out of the room? And I believe that would be legal. If they agreed to that, I'm going to guess they probably would have said, they might have agreed to this. I think that's reasonable. So maybe we would try that in the future. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Do you want to go thank you?
Aye.
Have your-
Really nice.